Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many incredible product marketers over the last, gosh, it's almost 2 years now. And I should say even beyond that at other roles, certainly, but at least within the asset mule journey, you're one of the awesome product marketers that I've had a chance to make friends with and meet. So I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing some insights in your craft and trying to help folks out there. Real quick, just so the folks can get to know you a little bit, maybe you can give us a quick background on yourself and your career.
Sure, of course. Wow, I've been product marketing for a long time now. At least for the last 5 years, I've been in this field, working in different industries. Before that, I was in marketing, had also a short journey as an entrepreneur, leading my startup. And I'm originally from Brazil, so I moved to Canada, still getting used to.
Muito obrigado.
Yeah, your Portuguese is getting better and better.
You know, I gotta work on it, but I have a sweet spot. Maybe I'll tell you off camera about Portuguese culture and just how much I really have an affinity for it.
Amazing. Wow, and well, that's it. My experience over the past 2 years was at Uberflip as a senior product marketing manager, where I had the opportunity to work with incredible companies and help them with their go-to-market strategy, especially with personalization and leveraging content to engage buyers and help them to buy from them. And now I'm back to my sweet spot, as you said, in education. I worked for a long time in EdTech, and now I'm back to the industry.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into one of our favorite topics, ABM or account-based marketing. How should product marketers be involved in developing ABM campaigns? And I know that this in some ways is specific to the composition or the org structure of an organization, the size, a lot of different things. But at a high level, what advice would you give those product marketers out there and just marketing teams in general about effectively working with PMMs?
Yeah, sure. Product marketing, I usually say that is the most cross-functional position in our organization. We interact with sales, CX, marketing, product, basically everybody in the company to ensure that our message is aligned across the entire organization in all touch points with our customers. We have to know the product deeply and also our audience, our customers. So I think when it comes to ABM, our role is to ensure that every message we deliver, every segment we're targeting is delivering the right message to the right people at the right time through the right channel. I think that's one of the key components. Marketing, of course, knows the audience very well, but when it comes to the pain points and how a company can solve those problems, those challenges with their product, is when the product marketing team can be more helpful in this journey.
Well, let's talk about personalization. How should we approach personalization when running ABM campaigns, specifically from a perspective of a PMM?
Right. Yeah. ABM in general, I think personalization is a key component. There are several theories around how to do personalization. And I think it's not just more the matter of calling someone by name when sending an email or telling them that they are using this piece of tech. I think it goes beyond that. It's not just about trying to be specific in the message that you're sending. It's about solving the problems that your audience have. So it doesn't matter. For example, I can send you an email calling you by your name or making a joke about the university that you went, but it may be not relevant for you. What is relevant for you is that know your challenges, and I know how to solve those problems, those challenges. And this is, of course, my solution with my product. So this is what I understand as personalization nowadays. It's about getting as much as information as possible, so you can narrow down, create the right segments, and then you can craft the message for each segment, message that is relevant, providing the relevant content, piece of content for each audience, so you can answer their questions. Nowadays, most people, they look for information about a piece of tech with their peers, on communities, for example, on LinkedIn, because they don't feel that the content they get from the vendors is relevant. There is this stat from Forrester that says that almost 60% of the content vendors provide to buyers is just weird, not relevant. It's just too much for what buyers are looking for. So that's why they look for answers or information in different sources. So the challenge is to understand the audience, understand their pain points, create the right segmentation in your marketing automation tool, and then craft the right message, and then deliver this message to them. Of course, nowadays, with the new technology that's available, you can understand if an account, a buyer is in market or not. So you can be more timely in your communication. But even if you don't have that level of technology, you can still be relevant and personalized by crafting the message. And then again, coming back to the point that we were discussing before, is when product marketing plays a pivot role.
And from the perspective of determining that messaging that's going to go into the campaigns, what are some of the best methods of collecting those insights that you then use to craft, the positioning, the messaging, and copy, those sort of things? Do you have any sort of like best practices around that, around getting like that real stuff? And I say that because, like, to your point, you could look at where people went to school and all that. That doesn't matter, right? Like I guess it's a nice thing in some cases, right? It can warm it up a little bit. It can't hurt, but if it's just fluff, the standard from from a graphic or data that you can get in from these like various services these days, like everybody has that, right? At this point, it's somewhat table stakes. So how do you get the real stuff, and what does it look like?
From the field, you have to talk to your customers, you have to talk to your salespeople, your customer success team. They might not have all the answers, but they certainly have a feeling about what's going on in the market. And especially your customers, they will tell you everything that's going on. So I've seen most or several companies saying something or having a message that's not exactly the way their customers perceive what they do. There's a disconnection between what a company says and then what the customer feels, or the reason why they buy a piece of tech. So I think the more you speak to your customers, the more you understand their challenges, the more you understand the problems or the jobs they are trying to do with your tool, then you have what you need. It's more about that than, to be honest, any tech framework or whatever. There are so many great frameworks out there you can use, but it doesn't matter if you don't have that information. If you're not exposed to your customers, it doesn't matter. You won't be able to craft something that is relevant.
Now, I know that you worked for a good while at Uberflip, right? And
Yeah.
Uberflip's really been a pioneer in content and personalization, that intersection of it, and a variety of other sort of you know approaches to product and these sort of things. But when you think about the voice of the customer,
Mhm.
and I know that, well, I don't know this 100%, but I have been observing Uberflip for years. I'm going to say 8 years, maybe something like that. And I know that they had a strong opinion, right? The founding team had a strong opinion about the market and the category and that and all that stuff, right? And I would kind of say like, I don't know, I would personally say that Uberflip was one of the category creators, right,
Mhm.
in this whole space. So my question is, how much of the founder or leadership's vision around what the message and the story should be do you ultimately incorporate in the externally facing messaging, right, that you end up using for ABM and other stuff, right? And how do you mix that with like the voice of the customer? And to your point, the voice of the customer, in my mind, I totally agree, uh, humbly, that you get that through speaking to the customer, speaking to the market, right? But I know that there's always this delicate balance between these two perspectives that might or might not align all the time, right?
Mhm. No, totally. And this is a very interesting case, what we experienced at Uberflip, because the founder's voice and idea, the founders literally wrote the book that created the content experience category. And it became such a powerful tool to inspire marketers out there. But at the same time, what happened is that our language, our message became very linked to that thought leadership and became not very specific into the problems that we solve and
Mm,
how we solve that with the product. So one of the changes that we made while I was at Uberflip was to implement something that is more detailed. And there are so many great influencers on LinkedIn nowadays talking about this, that you should be more specific. You should show how you solve a problem with your product. There are many websites you go, you take a look, and you basically don't understand what the company what the company does. So that's, I think, is when the thought leadership or this visionary message become abstract, and then you have to find the balance by showing and connecting the problems and the product to that message somehow. So usually the way that I see this is that you have the branding message that is important. You keep using that maybe for awareness, but when you go down or a lead go down on the pipeline, you need something that is more specific. You need to start answering their questions about your product, about your solution, with something that is more tangible.
mm,
That's, I think, is the fine. That's a fine tune. You need to find that balance. I know founder-led companies, they tend to be very visionaries. Founders are visionary, by essence, which is great. It's why the companies exist. But marketers in general, product marketers, need to find a way to bring down that message and connect to the real problems every day. You keep that visionary message setting, the future, but you need to show how you solve a real problem that is happening today with your product.
have you ever been in a situation where there's contention or, yeah, just say contention or misalignment that you have to now figure out how to solve? And you're, to your point, you're kind of in the middle as the product marketer, right? Between this data set of customer feedback, literally, right? From paying customers, but also marketers, or I guess in this case, yeah, marketers are, but I was really going to say like the audience out there that us marketers or product marketers go out and collect insight. And again, just to specify, from non-paying customers. So we have two sets, right? Paying customers and then the broader market where we're getting insights. So let's just group that into one data set. And then
Mhm.
you got the other stuff that we were just talking about. Like, how do you bridge that gap? How do you, for those product marketers out there who are having to deal with this, which I know there's plenty out there, right? And this shows up in many, many different ways, but we'll speak to this particular product marketing role scenario. What advice, like, what could they do to bridge that gap, to speak a language, to explain it, to say, hey, we got to figure this out in this way, and we have to, whether it's leave our egos at the door or something other than that, right? To
Mhm.
to find the solution.
Yeah, I think whenever you test a messaging is when when all the opinions basically you can break any idea or preconcept, by showing numbers, by showing real feedback. So let me give you an example. We launched the feature last year at Uberflip. That was a very important feature. It was a game changer feature for the company. Uh, and we needed to find a way to name the outcome of this feature. It was really challenging because, again, we created the category, we called this outcome content experience, but whenever you asked a marketer what the content experience is, they can't define it. It's not something that comes to your mind very easily. So when we showed the outcome to many marketers, customers and no customers, several of them said, "Oh, this is a landing page. Oh, this is a microsite. This is a web page." There were so many ways to define the outcome of that feature, and we used that feedback, those numbers, to show, here we shouldn't call this a content experience anymore because marketers still don't get it. So we decided, we went with a different nomenclature for that specific feature, and naturally it became more something more tangible for most
Mm.
for most of our customers. They got it very easily.
Yeah. So use data, use performance metrics, and that sort of stuff to be able to go to the table and justify and negotiate with other stakeholders internally.
Exactly. There are so many great testing tools that you can use. Winter is one of them.
Mm. Yep.
There are others. There are some others that you can also use to test message, language, terms that you're using in your campaign, um, or in your product. You should always test. Get something real. Get real feedback. Don't use only internal feedback to make a decision.
Hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the stigma that you were talking about around ABM. What is that? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were talking about these, that there are many marketers, not just marketers, but also, for example, CEOs. Whenever you talk to them about ABM, they say, "Oh, ABM is too complicated. We are not doing ABM. We're trying something else." And when you see at the end of the day, it's just ABM, but with a different name. We are doing a segmented campaign. You're targeting a specific audience. You defined your ICP. What you're doing at the end of the day is ABM, but you are not calling ABM because there is this stigma around that ABM is too complex. You need many tools. You need uh, invest lots of money in tech so we can execute ABM well. And that's not true. You can still do ABM or start with ABM with a simple pilot, for example. You can run ABM with 20, 25, 30 customers. You don't need more than that to start doing ABM. So we can know your audience very well, as we were discussing before. You can have the data about them. You can personalize your outreach to each of them. Either it's an ad or a cold email, cold call, whatever the channel you decide to reach to those buyers. But we're still using data in segmentation and a personalized outreach to talk to these companies. So at the end of the day, it's ABM. It's not, and to be honest, it's not that complex once you understand the basics.
Mm. Awesome. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your insights around product marketing and account based marketing. If folks wanted to get in contact with you, follow you, maybe get some insights about product marketing and ABM, what are the best channels or URLs to reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Daniel Viana. It's very straightforward. You can find me there. I'm at Applyboard now. I'm back to EdStack, the EdStack world, working with educational institutions and also with our recruitment partners network. So lots of things happening here, lots of demand generation strategies, ABM happening too. So probably I just joined the company, so I'll be sharing some of the new things we are implementing probably soon on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to reach out to you to get some insight as well. So, yeah. Well, thank you again for your time and have a great day.
Thank you, Jorge. Thanks for
Muito
having me.
obrigado.
Thank you. Muito obrigado.